Good evening and welcome to Vision of Asia, Voice of the Community. We bring you trusted news and events that honor our rich South Asian culture and celebrate our vibrant community. I'm Nidhi Kathuria joining you from our ITV Gold studio in New Jersey. In the news this evening, Indian ambassador calls for immediate ceasefire in Ukraine conflict. World Bank President Ajay Banga applauds India's resilience amid global slowdown. Rishi Sanak issues formal apology for ban on LGBT military service. Anurag Chandra sentenced to life in prison for murdering 3 teens in doorbell prank tragedy. IACAW's Heritage of India Festival returns, showcasing vibrant cultural exchange. Stay with us on Vision of Asia, Voice of the Community for news in detail right after this short break. India's permanent ambassador to the United Nations, Ruchira Kamboj, expressed deep concern about the conflict in Ukraine during her address at the UN General Assembly. She emphasized India's stance, which calls for an immediate end to hostilities and a return to dialogue and diplomacy. She underlined that this is a time for peace, not war.
India continues to remain concerned over the situation in Ukraine. We are concerned about recent developments in the region which have not helped in securing the larger cause of peace and stability. India has supported the efforts of the UN Secretary General in continuing the Black Sea Grain Initiative and hopes for an early resolution to the present impasse. We have urged that all efforts be made for an immediate cessation of hostilities and an urgent return to the path of dialogue and diplomacy. Madam Chair, India continues to remain concerned over the situation in Ukraine. The conflict has resulted in the loss of lives and misery for its people, particularly for the women, children, and elderly, with millions becoming homeless and forced to take shelter in neighboring countries. Reports of attacks on civilians and civilian infrastructure are indeed deeply worrying. We are concerned about recent developments in the region which have not helped in securing the larger cause of peace and stability. I will add here that India has supported the efforts of the UN Secretary General in continuing the Black Sea Grain Initiative and hopes for an early resolution to the present impasse. We have consistently advocated, Chair, that no solution can ever be arrived at the cost of human lives. Escalation of hostilities and violence is in no one's interest. We have urged that all efforts be made for an immediate cessation of hostilities and an urgent return to the path of dialogue and diplomacy. The global order that we all subscribe to is based on international law, the UN Charter, and respect for the territorial integrity and sovereignty of all states. These principles must be upheld without exception. Dialogue, hence, is the only answer to settling differences and disputes, however daunting that may appear at the moment. The path to peace requires us to keep all channels of diplomacy open. It is also unfortunate, Chair, that as the trajectory of the Ukraine conflict unfolds, the entire global South has suffered a substantial collateral damage. It is thus critical that the voice of the global South be heard and that their legitimate concerns be duly addressed. India's approach to the Ukraine conflict, Chair, will continue to be people-centric. We are providing both humanitarian assistance to Ukraine and economic support to some of our neighbors in the global South under economic distress, even as they stare at the escalating cost of food, fuel, and fertilizers, which has been a consequential fallout of the ongoing conflict. In light of my Prime Minister's repeated engagements with both sides, it is essential to emphasize that we firmly believe that this is not an era of war. It is with this understanding and spirit that India actively participates in this debate.
World Bank President Ajay Banga expressed his belief that India's proactive measures have positioned it well during the global slowdown. He stated that India's high percentage of GDP would be advantageous, ensuring the economy's resilience and continued growth. Banga shared these views on July 19th.
But we're actually fighting many crises. Let's all make sure we're using the money we already have in the best possible way. Where you're standing right now, this entire skilling idea emerged from a World Bank conversation with the Prime Minister very early in his first tenure. India is doing a lot of things which has allowed it to stay ahead. Most countries would be very happy with the 7% growth rate in this environment. India's exposure is cushioned by the relatively higher percentage of the economy that comes from domestic consumption. Money that is to go into the system for renewable energy across the world alone is in $1 trillion a year. If you look at anybody's estimates, right? So the fact is that kind of money you cannot get from governments or multilateral banks alone, or even philanthropies. You have to get the private sector involved. The question is, we've created a private sector investment lab that will help us understand how to do this well. The fact remains you will need different forms of concessional capital. You will also need different forms of multilateral bank capital and government capital and philanthropy capital to take first risk positions or to help enable the blended finance to come through. So the real issue is, if that's what you need for renewable energy, but we're actually fighting many crises. We've got climate issues, we've got issues with fragility, conflict, pandemics and future healthcare needs, and underlying all this we have the issue of fighting poverty and creating jobs for people. So I think the requirements are immense. The way I have approached this is, let's all make sure we're using the money we already have in the best possible way. Once we have finished that, then we should come back to the richer countries and say, what is your ambition for the future and how much money more are you willing to put? I think the expert group just gives you a broad idea and then we can figure out where to take this.
So 1 trillion is what?
Let's go to someone else. It's $1 trillion just for renewable energy every year in the emerging markets.
So the World Bank pointed out last year that India lost out on $400 billion just because of the extreme measures it took for school closures during the pandemic. How do you think India can make up for that? And considering World Bank has been a constant support when it comes to the education sector, what do you see?
You've got to remember that it's not only India that closed schools for the pandemic. The US closed schools down in a number of parts of the country. So the developed and developing world was learning as this pandemic happened how to deal with it. And I think there's been learning loss across the world. So we have a real challenge for that generation that was going through schooling at that time. And it's not just India's problem alone. It's an issue across the world. My view is that we must learn. Now, we've got to fix what we've got, but we must make sure we learn for the next pandemic, because otherwise we'll do this again. The next one will come. It's a question of how long before it does come. That, to me, is the bigger issue.
You've spoken about, the World Bank has spoken about increasing guarantees and other steps like hybrid capital,
yes,
affordable capital. Now, how soon should we expect that? That's the first part of my question. The other thing is on the private investment lab, what kind of projects are you taking up?
Yeah. So the first question, what basically the process that we're following is that the evolution roadmap required us to think about all these instruments, which we're now working our way through. We're presenting them to all our shareholders, the donor countries, as well as in some cases outside philanthropies and the like. The October is when the annual meetings of the World Bank and IMF are being held in Morocco. I think that's the time when you should see commitments from donor countries coming in. The US has already indicated clearly, Secretary Yellen made a very clear statement, as you probably heard, that they were going to commit to some. Others have to commit. So I think you'll probably see the results of that after that. The first part of the capital expansion is taking our loan to equity ratio down from 20 to 19. That doesn't require any additional money to come in. It's our own to handle and manage. The way this works is for every $1 billion that comes in, we can increase our capacity to lend over a decade by between 5 and 7 billion, depending on the repayment pattern. So it has a very nice multiplier effect that I'm quite keen to make use of. But the other side of this is you have to have bankable projects. You've got to go to countries where people are trying to set up development ideas, and you have to make sure that good quality projects are ready and available. And one of the things the bank can do, in fact, when you go travel in countries, including in India, it's not only our money. It is, of course, the stamp of good housekeeping kind of thing, but more importantly, it's our knowledge, it's our convening power, it's our ability to help inform regulatory policies, to help inform these kinds of things. Where you're standing right now, this entire skilling idea emerged from a World Bank conversation with the Prime Minister very early in his first tenure, and he kind of got hooked on it, that skilling changes the opportunity for young people. So, there's more to it than the money. That's what I'm trying to get across. There's also the knowledge bank to be well worked through.
But the private investment lab, what kind of projects are you taking up?
So I don't know yet. We're going to have our first meeting soon. Mark Kani and Shriti are chairing it. Actually, Chandra of Tata Sons is one of the members. And so the idea is they'll get together once a month and we'll discuss the kind of couple of things we could do to help the private sector take away some of the risks it does not understand in the emerging markets. Could be foreign exchange, could be regulatory policy, could be political risk insurance. There's different aspects of it. So watch the space. It'll take a few months and then we'll see.
Mr. Pala, just to ask you about the challenges to the Indian economy right now. Inflation is a problem around the world. India has its own specific issues. How immune, how resilient will India continue to be in the midst of a global slowdown, and how can India raise its share of manufacturing GDP?
So you got many questions in there, right? In your one question, but which is clever. But the first question, the question about inflation, one thing I would tell you, while I did say that I expect that the global economy will have challenges over the next period of time, it has proven more resilient, and frankly, everybody has been proven wrong during this period. So I would be careful about assuming that people have suddenly learned how to forecast well. And in my speech, I said that forecasts are not destiny. And I think that's really important to remember. India is doing a lot of things which has allowed it to stay ahead. You've just had a great growth year. And most countries would be very happy with the 7% growth rate in this environment. So I'm a little more optimistic about where this could go. My general sense is if there's a global slowdown, the one thing that India has going for it is the very high percentage of its GDP that comes from domestic consumption. Your exposure to the typical impact of global slowdowns caused by trade slowing down, caused by trade in goods as well as services slowing down, India's exposure is cushioned by the relatively higher percentage of the economy that comes from domestic consumption, which is very helpful at a time like this.
An Indian-American man, Anurag Chandra, was sentenced to life in prison without parole for killing 3 teens in a car crash after they played a doorbell prank on him. He was found guilty of murder, attempted murder, and multiple murders in January of 2020. Chandra chased the teens in his car, ramming their vehicle off the road, leading to the tragic incident. During the trial, he testified that he felt threatened by the prank and had consumed a significant amount of alcohol before the incident. The lives of countless families will never be the same because of one man's anger, callousness, and outrageous conduct, and I'm grateful to Judge Navarro for imposing the maximum sentence in this case, District Attorney Mike Herstrin said during the sentencing on Friday. UK Prime Minister Rishi Sanak issued a formal apology for the historical mistreatment of LGBT people who served in the military when homosexuality was banned until the year 2000. He acknowledged that this ban was an appalling failure of the British state, leading to horrific abuse, violence, bullying, and harassment endured by those bravely serving the country. The apology came after an independent review detailed a culture of homophobia and recommended appropriate financial awards for affected veterans. Sunak expressed hope that the apology would make them feel proud of the part of the veteran community that has contributed significantly to the country's safety.
Mr. Speaker, the ban on LGBT people serving in our military until the year 2000 was an appalling failure of the British state, decades behind the law of this land. As today's report makes clear, in that period, many endured the most horrific sexual abuse and violence, homophobic bullying and harassment, all while bravely serving this country. Today, on behalf of the British state, I apologise. And I hope all those affected will be able to feel proud parts of the veteran community that has done so much to keep our country safe. Mr. Speaker, this morning I had meetings with ministerial colleagues and others in addition to my duties in this House. I shall have further such meetings later today.
We invite you to watch this special interview excerpt with the Indian American Cultural Association of Westchester, IACAW. In the segment, we delve into the heart of their annual extravaganza, the Heritage of India Festival HIF, a celebration that promotes Indian culture while fostering unity and cultural awareness within our diverse community. Joining us at the ITV Gold Studio are President Vaishali Bhattacharya, Past President Lisa Shah, and Secretary Chitra Taneja. Stay tuned for the complete interview, which will soon be aired on ITV Gold.
This year, our focus has been to empower our younger generation. And in order to engage them, have hands-on experience, our theme for our HIF festival is games and sports, popular games and sports of India. And so with that, we have a youth committee that we have reinstated this year, and they're engaged at every level of our festival this year, from being MCs for the cultural program to participating actively at our children's booth as well as the sports and games booth.
Lisa, having actively contributed to IACAW for over 15 years, how have you witnessed the growth and impact of the Heritage of India Festival? What motivated you to become involved in promoting Indian culture?
Well, first of all, I can't believe it's been 15 years. It seems like it just goes by so fast probably because I enjoy it so much. What motivated me to preserve my culture, as you know, I was born here, so I think it was one of those things that I always wanted to, make sure I didn't lose. And as far as the HIF festival goes through the years of the parts where,
Stop. Somebody's mic is making a lot of
noise. It's me using my hands.
Okay. Yeah, okay. So just answer the whole thing again.
Okay. So it seems like 15 years, I don't know where that time went. It went by pretty fast. You had asked, how have I seen the growth of the HIF festival throughout the years? Well, I have to say the first time that I have been exposed to HIF was basically I went to the park one day with my family and we were just walking around and all of a sudden I see, wait, what's going on? There's all this stuff for India. At that time, I think they had started this trying to showcase a different culture each Sunday in our Parks and Rec department in Westchester County. So that's my first, and I was very impressed and excited. So of course, wanted to get involved, find out more about it. Actually, my friend Chitra here, our secretary, was the one who kind of got me more involved with the whole thing.
Wonderful. Yeah. Chitra, as an active member for a decade, how do you balance your professional life while contributing to IACAW's initiatives and events like the Heritage of India Festival?
Well, I try to, I do work part-time. I try to make sure that I have my family, professional, and then this gives me another element to my life that allows me to be who I am, maintain my culture, maintain my heritage, and makes me have a space where I can have my community and form that bond within my community that's been absolutely a foundation for me. It's given me a foundation to have the friends and family that I don't have, the family that I don't have in the area. So it's given me that space, and the professional life is there. You just do the best you can in every aspect. I work, I do the community volunteer work as much as I can, and I love it all. I love my work, I love volunteering, So it really gives me that ability to be parts of me, to give my parts to various activities.
So you can attend this festival on August 6th, that's Sunday, at Kensico Dam Plaza in Westchester County. Everyone is welcome, all ages, all backgrounds, all ethnicity, free of charge. We welcome you with open hearts and open arms.
Wonderful. Is there a rain date if it starts to rain or anything like that?
No, we go, rain or shine, we make it work. And we've had rain in the past and it hasn't stopped us. We've all still had a great time. But sunshine is always better, so let's keep our
from 12
fingers
to 6.
crossed.
Fingers crossed.
Yes.
It's from 12 o'clock to 6 o'clock.
Yes.
Okay.
The festival runs from 12 o'clock to 6 o'clock, and then we have a dignitary hour at 4 o'clock.
3 to 4. 3 to 4 p.m.
3 to 4 p.m.
Okay. Tune in this Friday at 9 p.m. EST for Kajal, starring Meena Kumari, Rajkumar, Dharmendra and Mumtaz. On Saturday at 1 p.m. EST, catch an action drama film directed by Raj Khosla, starring Dharmendra, Asha Parekh and Vinod Khanna, called Mera Gaon Mera Desh. Watch rip-tickling comedy on Super Hit Sunday called Welcome, directed by Anees Bazmi, starring Akshay Kumar, Anil Kapoor, Nana Patekar, Ranjit and dashing late Feroz Khan at 3 p.m. EST. Thank you for watching Vision of Asia, Voice of the Community tonight. We value your feedback on community news coverage. Email us at events@itvgold.com. Stay connected on Facebook at itvgold and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Get a free copy of Desi Talk in the Tri-State or Chicago. Visit www.newsindiatimes.com or call 212-675-7515 for News India Times. Thanks for tuning in. This is Nidhi Kathuria signing off.